Hey and welcome to Throne and Liberty with Aragon. So the cost to get to endgame is actually pretty immense in this game. You will have to spend upwards of 40,000 Lucent or farm your ass off. Effectively, you need to gain 12 pieces of every single purple item. This price not including weapons. And so in this video I want to break it all down and ultimately cover exactly what traits for gear you want to be going for and potentially why you should probably go with blue instead of purple when we look at the actual difference in the massive amount of price to what you actually gain. So let's begin with exactly what traits you want to be getting on your gear. Each piece has some similarities. However, it's going to differ based on what slot you're using on what exact traits they can get. For example, arms can have attack speed, head pieces can have cooldown speed, boots can have movement speed, and it's like that across the majority of the gear pieces. None two are the same, and ultimately this is exactly what you want to be going for on each of those gear pieces. This is pretty much the best in slot setup. You can see with every single piece they've got max health and then 2 other benefits. I will discuss more in a later section in the video about those secondary benefits, particularly for PvP, as it can change quite a bit. So take this for PvE for now. Overall, you end up with this entire amount of stats from those traits, but it comes at a cost. Each of those traits have to be upgraded 4 times. When you obtain a new piece, it will already have 1 trait on it. But in order to obtain that piece, you have to play the game, farm, and obtain it. Once you have that piece, you make the decision, am I going to keep that piece? Am I going to trait it up? Or am I going to go ahead and sell it? If I decide to trait it up, it's going to cost me 11 other equivalent pieces in order to max it out. It's going to cost you 2 more equivalents of the exact same piece to unlock these traits, like this one for health regen. I'm not going to do it because that's not the ideal trait to go on here. It's a bracelet. I want to get debuff duration. But in order to upgrade these traits, I need other bracelets that have the exact trait. So the easiest place is to go to your auction house, search criteria, find trait. For example, I want debuff duration, select that there in accessories, and I want it on a bracelet. I'm going to have to pay 190 Lucent in order to obtain it. If I want to unlock the trait, I can also just play 194 Lucent because this is the exact item equivalent to the one that I'm traiting. But for the upgrades of that trait, I only need to purchase this one. If I want to improve my max health on it so that it can be maxed out, we need to make sure we are selecting epic here, and that would cost 490. And that's where you can see the cost adding up significantly. And there are some pieces here that will be super expensive to upgrade, like skill damage boost on your necklace. That's 940 Lucent right now. And you're going to again need 4 of them. You're going to need 1 to unlock the trait and 3 more to upgrade it to its max, to ultimately gain all of these benefits with this cost. So what I want to look at now is blue gear. Let's say I decided I'm not going to go for purple gear. I'll stay with blue and we'll just max out the traits on those blue gear. Well, you'll follow the same trait setup like this. Blue gear can also have all of these different traits, but it will be significantly cheaper. We just select rare there, look for the exact same piece, and it's only 56 Lucent. If we were to look for max health in armor, you can see that can even go down to just 10 Lucent, which is the minimum. You won't get cheaper than that. But still, the cloak's actually pretty expensive. But overall, you could max out your blue gear, and that would actually only cost you just over 6,000 Lucent to do it. Each trait only, upgrades 3 times instead of 4, but the significant price reduction per piece is massive. But let's look at the benefits. We saw them already for purple. Well, this is them for blue. And what's the real difference between them then? Well, that's this here. You're going to have a difference of 1,650 health, which is actually only going to be around 11% increase when you have already 15,000. If you have maxed out blue gear, you should have like 10,000 from stacking strength like I have right here, and then you gain nearly 5,000 from the blue gear. So you should be at like 15,000, which means, yeah, you'll only gain this much of an increase if you were to switch to purple upgraded gear, which is not that big of a difference then. Endurance, or maybe you're stacking evasion, the difference there, if you were to calculate endurance, would be around a 13% average less damage taken. And then looking at skill damage resistance, you'll miss around 60 points, is around 5% average less damage taken. And then the skill damage boost is around 3.5% average damage increase. So overall, the effective difference here between blue and purple is not that big. And so it wouldn't actually be that bad to, instead of paying this massive cost, to just use your blue gear. Especially since a lot of it is just survivability based. And if you're just looking to improve your damage, particularly for PvE content, then you can see you're only missing like 3.5% damage here from traits. So it's really not a priority to switch to purple gear and max your traits for increasing your damage. You can save yourself tens of thousands of Lucent by staying with your blue gear. Again, particularly if you're a damage dealer where survivability isn't that important. Of course, when you go to PvP, that's when survivability does become important. That's when having that extra bit of hit points, that extra bit of damage reduction can be a make or break on whether you win a fight or not. And that's why people do invest in purple gear and max it out and get all of those bonuses. But I think for the average, especially free-to-play player, getting purple gear is not a priority. Again, we speak of just these slots here, not of the weapons. Weapons are your number one priority to get upgraded to purple and to trade them out. Just a quick note with regards to traits on weapons. Well, if you are seeking to improve your damage, well, you're just getting hit chance, crit chance, and heavy attack chance. And that's very simple. Every weapon should allow you to get those three traits. If you're a tank, you'll be looking for like health regen, maximum hit points. And if you're a healer, you'll still be going with the heavy attack chance and the crit chance, and then be looking for like mana regen, max mana. But going back to the price of, say, blue gear versus purple gear, we can actually reduce the purple gear's price with blessings. Because again, we don't then need to get so many duplicates of the same item. Like with my headpiece, I'll be able to spend blessings that I obtained from trading my blue. You get enough to compensate for 2 trait upgrades. So we could reduce this. Instead of the price being 4 times, it'll just be 2 times, because 2 of them I'll get just with blessings. And you'll end up saving about 10,000 Lucent worth by doing that. So absolutely, get your traits on your blue gear before switching to purple. It is such a saver. As you can see again, 10,000 Lucent equivalent, going from this down to this. And that is because the crazy price of some of these traits. Skill damage boost on necklace, nearly 1,000. Max health on necklace, 700. Max health on cloaks, also nearly 700. But again, over time, those prices will definitely go down. People will get more gear. People will not need new gear anymore, and the prices will just continue to drop. So my suggestion as a free-to-play player is just upgrade your blue gear. Focus on that. You will still be very, very effective. You barely lose any damage, and sure, you'll take a little bit of extra damage. But in the end of the day, in PvE content, that's really not going to matter right now. And in PvP content, you can generally just play a little bit better and you'll be okay. However, there's a catch. If you get the right epic gear and you don't even trait it, you can gain a pretty big boost in terms of damage output, but you will take a significant hit to incoming damage. This is like a breakdown of non-purple traded gear best in slot versus best in slot traded blue gear, and Ultimately, you find the damage difference, the survivability difference, and it boils down to a 30% total damage gain for melee damage dealers and like a 12.6% damage gain for ranged damage dealers. That's mainly due to the heavy attack chance you can gain by using an item set piece. But then without all of those traits, you're losing so much hit points. You'll lose out on over 6,000 and you lose out on minus 42% damage taken. So you'd basically gain, a damage spike, but a massive survivability hit. A few more notes with regards to evasion and endurance. I covered this in depth in this specific video, but ultimately the usual best scenario is to just go with endurance. It's going to be very reliable and it's going to work all the time, so long as you're stacking the correct one for the correct content. That's the thing with these traits. I haven't gone and said take like magical endurance, take ranged endurance, or take melee endurance, because that's going to depend on the content you're playing, and again depend on what players you're facing. Also, you could, instead of taking like buff duration or debuff duration, take more defensive stats of a different one. For example, I could go and take like both melee endurance and ranged endurance, rather than say having this 6% buff duration or this 6% minus to debuff duration, as that's not going to be the end of the world. Sure, I'll lose a bit of damage output, especially depending on the build, or I'll take a bit more damage depending on these debuffs I receive. But in the end of the day, if you want to maximize your effectiveness, you'd have one gear set that would be like, one's for magic endurance, one's for ranged endurance, one's for melee endurance, and you'd equip it depending on the scenario. You might have another set with evasion of the 3 different types, having 6 different sets. I know it's absolutely crazy, but that's what you would need to do in this game to min-max. My ultimate verdict is, PvP is going to be very costly for you. If you're a free-to-play player, try and just focus on dealing decent damage as a damage dealer in PvE. You will still do good damage in PvP, but you'll definitely be a lot squishier. And otherwise, just try and take either magic endurance or ranged endurance and you'll be fine, depending on, I guess, what kind of players you're running into. Are you dying a lot to those bow users, the crossbow users, or are you dying a lot to those staff users? Honestly, there's only one magic weapon that's going to be much of a threat, and then there's like 2 ranged weapons, so maybe range should be better. The ultimate conclusion is that yes, you should focus on all of these traits. The only thing that might change a bit depending on what content you're playing is the endurance and potentially like the cooldown debuff, buff duration, attack speed, move speed. On the main armor pieces, you can potentially have other defense stats there instead. But yeah, the cost is pretty insane if you want to be getting that fully maxed out for purple gear. If you use blessings, you can definitely reduce that by nearly 10,000 Lucent, but you could alternatively just go with simply blue gear, get these traits on it, and you cost maybe 6,000 Lucent to do that. Otherwise, blue gear is 10 times easier to drop. And then again, you can see these are the stats from the purple gear, stats from the blue gear, and then the comparison between the stats. And what I showed with this is like best in slot purple stuff not traded. That best in slot purple stuff is going to cost you thousands of Lucent. You get pieces which are like 14,000 Lucent, 20,000 Lucent, non-existent, 2,000 Lucent, 15,000 Lucent. Those items are super hard to obtain, and good luck trading them, because again, you need 2 more duplicates, so 3 in total. Imagine trying to get 3 of these just to get the traits unlocked, and then you need to buy more belts on this example to upgrade those traits. So an obscene amount of Lucent required to get like the actual good purple gear. Yes, you can get a bunch of trashy purple gear, like say this item right here. It's not even the worst, but it does not have a good trait list. Like, you really want an armor piece with hit points, and it doesn't have it, so it's not a gear piece I want to trade. It might be cheaper, 800 Lucent, but again, not what I would recommend spending a lot on, because you're better off focusing on the best in slot stuff and otherwise just running with your blue gear. So in the end of the day, blue gear, you won't miss much, particularly in terms of traits, but most definitely, if you're running weapons, try and get the purples ASAP and try get them traded out. These weapons I have, no good. They're purple, yeah, okay. I will absolutely go and transfer them into whatever I get next, and I'm ultimately going for these daggers and this crossbow. Those are the two best slot ones dropping from the dungeon, so that's great. We just need to run enough and either get them through the pity system or just get lucky for them to drop. Overall, that's the video. Just wanted to show the sheer amount of cost that purple gear requires. If you want to be getting good purple gear, it's obscenely expensive. Not just this 40,000 Lucent, but also to just get the item in the first place, because those are super rare drops. So thanks for watching. If this was somewhat insightful, consider leaving the video a like. If you're new around here, consider subscribing. We'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.